I'm feel so honored, and so does Susan, that we are partnering with Kim with this incredible tool, Positive Prime. She is the creator of this technology, and she's created a way. It's a neuroscience backed technology that helps individuals unlock their full potential in 3 minutes. Positive Prime is the world first in gamification programs that rewards users with positivity tokens for their engagement and contributions. As the CEO of Positive Prime, Kim's expertise is positive psychology and emotional well-being. She's immersed in the science of happiness through Positive Prime. She engages people with practical strategies for positive leadership, improved engagement, and increase our optimism. Kim, thank you so much for coming to share your wisdom with our community. The floor is yours. I welcome you.
Thank you, Carolyn and Susan, for creating such a beautiful opportunity. And thank you to the leader for Positive Prime in Canada, Nadine Hanshaw. So those of us in the Positive Prime community definitely know who Nadine is. This opportunity was created by her and facilitated, nurtured, and I am indeed very grateful. So how about we dive into a PowerPoint presentation, and I'll explain a little bit about who I am, and we'll talk about the state of flow from a scientific perspective, as well as perhaps dipping into a few esoterical concepts. And then we'll talk about, and what does that actually mean for us as leaders? What are the consequences or implications when we're not in flow? And I'll give you a little background, because I finished business school and I had an early career in change management consulting, extremely large multinationals that were merging or in an acquisitions phase. So the whole M&A world, and very large organizations, I'm talking tens of thousands of employees, going through transitions that were usually pretty messy and ugly. And I became fascinated in the way that humans behave during these incredible times of transformation. That in the corporate world is called a change management consultant. I'm a really intense human being. And so when I am intrigued about something, I have an insatiable curiosity, and I study and study and study. And then I find out who are the most extraordinary people in the field, in the world, and I connect with them. So in my early career, I actually rose to the top of the corporate ladder in both London and New York. And I was considered one of the top 100 people who specialized in leadership and communication issues in multinational change management programs. I had amazing mentors. That's the first thing I need to tell everybody. Leadership is about understanding you are not alone. Mentorship is more than coaching. That's about somebody who stands for you and with you without any recompense for themselves. They're spearheading, they're creating a path, and they're allowing you to follow, and they're actually shadowing you so that you're not harmed along the way as you travel the journey. I was allowed to become one of the most incredible change management consultants because I had phenomenal mentorship. People who are now really famous, like Octavius Black, who founded the Mind Gym in the UK. All right, so let me go into flow, because had I not worked for this specific tiny little boutique agency, you know, the John Grisham movies, like The Firm, I worked in a place like that. We were 100 hours a week billable. We were flying all over the world. We all wore Armani suits. We thought we were pretty fabulous. I was pretty intimidating and rather arrogant. And I am so far away from that human 20, 30 years down the track. Thank goodness for everybody, including me. And I have to say that over the years, I've come to understand a few things. So let's just go into what is neuroscience and what is flow and why am I here? The reality is that I was pretty burnt out in the corporate world. And so I went back to study and I became a qualified exercise physiologist and osteopath. And I spent years and years in the global wellness industry. At that time, it was actually really just the spa industry, Salas per Aqua, health through water, very fancy beauty salons in very fancy health retreats. I literally did invent what is now known as hot stone massage around the world. So it's called lithos therapy, and it uses heated marble sculptures, not hot river stones, and chilled marble sculptures in contrast therapy, so thermotherapy and cryotherapy, heated and chilled in massage. And I introduced that to the spa industry at the International Spa Association. I did this amazing presentation. I demonstrated the treatment. It was filmed very early along. We're talking nearly 25 years ago. And then it spread like wildfire. People thought I was using river stones and thought you could heat them up in rice cookers. And before you know it, it's called hot stone massage. It was always lithos therapy. And under license, there were hundreds of spas and salons all over the world in some of the most prestigious places on planet Earth doing lithos therapy under brand. I trained lecturers at the Australasian College of Natural Therapies and lots of spa directors who then trained lots of therapists. Over 5,000 therapists became certified in lithos therapy. I tell you this for a reason. I saw thousands of therapists who are dedicated to making people feel better struggle with what happens after somebody gets up off a massage table and why does it take $250 or $150 and an hour or two in order for people to feel really fantastic and then, quite frankly, not have that last after about 24 hours. That's an expensive model. And I became really intrigued with a piece of research that I saw that was about if you smoke cigarettes, a packet of cigarettes is equal to 15 minutes of anger in your body. Now, I'm in the wellness industry, but I am a founder, a CEO, an entrepreneur, and I run a really impressive international business. And I'm training Ayurvedic doctors in India and other spa directors in the Middle East, in Abu Dhabi, and I'm flying all over the place. And the actual stress of running a business and of flying all over the place is taking its toll. It's such an irony. And then I started to experience for the first time in my life frustration and anger. And the only thing that I was consumed by was understanding the cardiovascular implications of being angry, frustrated, mildly annoyed at everything, whether that's your suppliers or your team members or your clients or the economy or the latest tax rules that are coming down, the changes, the interruptions, the distractions, and all of that is so incredibly destructive to your body and your health. And so I set about creating what you're going to hear about. Positive Prime is its name now, and it is scientifically proven. But ultimately, if we strip it all away, bottom line is it's about flow, which is about balance. It's about no stagnation. And so I'm going to dive really quickly into flow, but flow as I now understand it decades later, after I've intensively studied this thing for more than 25 years and seen thousands of therapists apply the wisdom that I've been sharing with them, with real people, with real problems, with real issues, with real health crises in real life situations. Alrighty, so neuroscience and flow. I've given you a little bit of a background to who I am, and that should be enough. But most people don't know. In the spa industry, I actually released a book called I Am Grateful for Life. I became a best-selling author. I literally phoned spas and salons and, incredible resorts like the Four Seasons. And I said, hey, will you buy a box of books and will you put them in your retail area? It's like skincare or aromatherapy oils. And so I became one of those real authors that sold real books in real life to real humans in really physical situations. I know people call themselves best-selling authors now when they sell 3 to their best friends in some obscure category on Amazon.com. That's not me, right? I literally am a real best-selling author, but not a New York Times best-selling author, right? And I have come to know lots of best-selling authors who made it to the top 10 list of the New York Times. That's a whole different category and stratosphere. Very recently, I think that one of the most beautiful outcomes of my journey was that I was invited to the Society for Neuroscience, which is the most prestigious in the world, and I presented the research findings on positive prime and what it physically does to your brain. We know for a fact that within 3 minutes, we can change your brainwaves, and we can do it through a visual intervention. Imagine it's like a massage treatment for your brain, but it happens through your eyes and it's a visual experience, right? And it's emotionally evocative. I am one of the 400 people who is still invited to the Global Wellness Summit's invitation only. It's thought leaders from around the world who shape the wellness industry globally. It's an honor, it's privilege, and it's pleasure. And it's a little bit like this community. It's loving and it's kind and it's thoughtful and it's innovative and it's led by amazing women, a little bit like Carolyn and Susan. I have done hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of presentations on tele summits and actual real stages and so forth. That's me. That's my home beach. That is literally only 10 minutes away. You can look up Noosa, N-O-O-S-A. And if you ever want to come and see me, you're more than welcome. Noosa is paradise on the Sunshine Coast, which is north of Brisbane in the state of Queensland in Australia. Alrighty, so flow. Flow is this elusive state. Well, is it elusive? No. Now, where I come from is people have this idiom or this mantra, change is hard, change is really hard. People don't change, you can't change. Change is really difficult, change is really complex. That's BS. Like, period, end of story, bottom line. The truth is change is exquisitely simple and easy and can happen rapidly. And the transformation can be truly enduring and sustainable, but you can't do it unless you access a part of the brain whilst your brain is in a certain state. That's the hard part, right? So we're going to talk about that. That means your brain needs to be in this very elegant flow between alpha and theta synchronization with bursts of gamma. They're actually just brainwaves. Everybody knows, because they've seen so many Hollywood dramas or even the best shows that are created in Canada or Australia. The images where we've always been able to, no, not always, it's only been a few decades, we've been able to measure heart waves, right? We can do that now, of course, with brain waves. We can do it actually with lots of other frequencies or waves. It's a really exciting time. The breakthrough slide is this. If you ever wanted to know something unique and exclusive, it's this. Most of us have been led to believe that there is a survival instinct that is the reason why we have a challenge with change. We've been hearing about fight or flight. Some of us think that there's only 2 responses and it's either fight somebody or run away. And so the media has got us fixated on fight or flight as these natural ways that we deal with something confronting. We as human beings, when our reptilian part of our brains evolved, we looked out onto the savannah. There were hardly any people on planet Earth then. And we recognized something that we could see, and this is all very important. Our eyes looked for threats and opportunities, And our new research that we did with brain EEG, but eye tracking and skin conductance, so that we could actually analyze basically sweat, perspiration. You know what we discovered? We as human beings, we have a more instinctual predisposition to looking for friends before fighting or running away. It is scientifically proven. We have actually just uncovered that through eye tracking at the University of Technology, Sydney, in the Brain Computer Interface Lab, which is actually a part of the Australian Institute for Artificial Intelligence. So I want you to know that this is like hot off the press. We have all been misled by all of the management textbooks that said we either fight or we run away when we feel like we're in danger and we're fighting for survival, because survival is our strongest instinct. The secondary instinct to that is actually this insatiable appetite we have to be right. So Dr. Wayne Dyer is very famous for saying you can choose to be either right or kind. Often it's not both. But the funny thing is that when we assessed a threat or an opportunity, we had to be accurate, we had to be correct, we had to be right, because our lives depended upon it. And so we have this inbuilt need to be right. And so that's where debating comes from. That's where wars come from. It's this trying to make sure that our right is what is sustained instead of somebody else's right. But what is fascinating about change is that when you don't get any of these things right, you're either frozen like a deer in headlights, right? And you are literally in this state where you cannot make a decision. And we're going to talk about this as leaders. You actually are more evolved and enlightened, so you don't go and punch people in the face, even if you'd like to. It's not appropriate to run away. What happens to our bodies is we faint. The parasympathetic and sympathetic nervous system is so out of control, we literally lie down. We pretend we're dead so that the threat doesn't actually kill us. That's where fainting comes from, right? Pretending to be dead. I'm going to tell you the most bizarre thing. I said it in the preamble. I actually went completely unconscious 6 times and had near-death experiences that have actually been documented. And I was not fainting. I was actually dead. My heart had stopped. In the medical world, they call it a pause. I do have a pacemaker. I fried my nervous system with the stress of entrepreneurship. And what I learned in the spa industry is a holistic approach is necessary. You cannot fix your problems with diet. You cannot fix your problems with exercise. You cannot fix your problems with psychology. It has to be a combination of all 3. I would actually argue you cannot fix your problems either unless you add 4 or 5. 4 or 5, you ready? The environment and your friends. Now, friends first. That's why the Grand Connection is so important in your lives. I don't want you to underestimate ever again the power of connection to your survival in business. That is actually just the truth, right? So when we are deeply connected to somebody and we're resonating with them, we are in flow with them, and marvelous things happen inside your brain, right? So we are in harmony. There is balance. We've got these beautiful brain waves. But guess what else is happening inside our brains? The areas that are responsible for creativity, there's all this activity. I want you to imagine this theatrical thunderstorm that's in the tropics. It's in your brain, and there's thunder and there's lightning. But actually, that's sparks of inspiration. That's ideas that are meaningful. That's significant strategies coming to you. That's plans that you should take action on, right? You don't have that happening inside your brain unless you're in what we call the positively primed state. That state has actually been researched and recorded and documented and understood. And a man named Sean Akel calls it the happiness advantage. There are different brand names or labels for this. The happiness advantage, being positively primed, being in a state of flow. What happens when you're in a state of flow, and we're going to talk about Dr. Barbara Fredrickson from the broaden and build theory. She's at a lab at North Carolina's school. So you actually have peripheral vision expand. They actually know this, that when you're in a state of stress, your vision literally narrows so much, you miss 90% of the information or the data that you could be taking in that would help you to make a better quality decision. Dr. Barbara Fredrickson put people into functional MRI machines, and she put these slideshows, that's going to become relevant in a minute, inside people's experience in the functional MRI machine. And she started to notice that when we experience certain emotions, certain things happen inside our brains. The emotion that we want is the happiness advantage or the positively primed state. It's joy, it's playfulness, it's peacefulness, it's expansion, it's feeling elevated. This is measurable, right? And guess what? Within 3 minutes, we can make it happen inside your brain, and it can happen to you, and you can do like nothing. And all you have to do is see what you need to see and hear what you need to hear. And it all occurs like naturally on automatic. It is phenomenal. It really, truly is phenomenal. So I actually applied to do my master's in positive psychology at the University of Pennsylvania more than 20 years ago, when it was first getting started with Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi and Martin Seligman. And it was like the most extraordinary, groundbreaking school in this new field of positive psychology. And I did that because I was a change management consultant first and foremost. So I thought that going down this path into understanding humans in the change process required me to have some expertise or thought leadership in positive psychology. What ended up happening was I interviewed all of the lecturers, and I interviewed a lot of the first graduates, and I asked them, was it worth going to UPenn? It's very expensive to do this master's, and I learned a lot. I learned a lot about flow. So Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi, way back in 2002, did this TED Talk. Did you know that TED Talks have been like around since then? And it was about flow. So I'm going to suggest, if you don't know who he is, Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi has since passed, but he is the groundbreaking leader. There would be no such person as Simon Sinek, or there'd be no Flow Collective if it wasn't for Mikhail Csikszentmihalyi. And this is out of the School of Positive Psychology at the University of Pennsylvania. And he is the most coveted colleague of Martin Seligman, who is considered the father of positive psychology. All right, so what's this all got to be? As leaders, and I'm sure you all agree with this, and you can be a leader of your family, of your community, of your church. You can be a leader inside your own business. You can be a leader to your clients, to your guests, to your children. You have to be able to discern what is useful and beneficial, what's great for the greater good. That requires focus. We know now from the field of neuroscience, which has been emerging for the last 2 decades, that your brain literally can't concentrate and doesn't focus. It doesn't have the capacity, the ability to do that unless you're in this state of flow, right? So brain waves are actually really, really, really important. When you are stressed, what actually happens is everything starts to shut down, and you don't have access to all of the mechanisms inside your brain that allow you to create really good quality decisions. So people, and I just mentioned Sean Akel, so we'll go into a little bit more about Sean. People like Sean Akel have actually had huge groups of people at UBS, the big Swiss bank, or at other financial private equity or hedge fund trading firms go through a process where they're negatively primed, they're neutrally primed, or they're positively primed, and then gives them trades and has analyzed the profitability of those trades by those sales traders, those people who are inside the financial markets and they're betting, it's professional gambling, and discovered that those people who are positively primed are significantly higher performing in terms of profitability, right? So there are a lot of large organizations that have been taking notice. At the end of the day, for me, it's about wellness. It is about productivity and efficiency and effectiveness. And that's a lot of blah if you don't have your health, if there isn't vitality. And so what is interesting is, for me, flow state is actually about our health. So in case you want to know a couple of shortcuts, it's time for you to get serious with yourself and honest with yourself about what actually matters in your life, in your business. There are clients who are absolute pains in the neck. You do not need to deal with them. Another business can actually deal with them. There are people in your life who actually distract you to your detriment. Don't pay them any attention. Remove them, release them, surrender, let go. You don't need them. You in your life, you are so precious. And it is such a privilege for us to be alive. We have the opportunity. We are worthy and deserving of doing that which brings us happiness and joy and allows us to be playful and lighthearted. We're allowed to do things where we feel like we're on purpose and what we're doing is relevant. Now, having said that, when life gets too easy, you're a little complacent, you're a little habitual, you've done this 1,000 times, guess what? You will fall out of flow. So you must continue to just tiny little steps forward, advancing, challenging yourself, looking at something new. And I would say to all of my clients, those who are particularly feeling lost or discouraged, the first thing you do is you sit down with a piece of paper and you write down all of your strengths, your gifts, and your talents. And you actually stay with that piece of paper. You see if you can be focused enough without getting up and going and watching a TV show or, distracting yourself with some social media reels or going and making yourself a cup of coffee or answering the phone to your child who's an adult who can solve their own problems or blah, 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 right? So you literally sit there and you write out all your strengths and you do not stop until you get to over 100. All of us have over 100 strengths, gifts, and talents. And then you write down, what are your resources? The two most important resources you have are time and attention. What are you paying attention to is about your why. And you could literally be so hyper-focused, you could be in the positively primed state that you could take 3 hours of action that's intentional and purposeful, and you do not need to work for the next 5 hours because you will have achieved more in that 3 hours than 99.9% of people on planet Earth. It doesn't mean you need to guilt yourself into doing another 5 hours because you were amazing for 3, right? Time is all we've all got, and we can all spend more of it in community service, in developing marvelous friendships, in being awesome aunties or uncles or sisters or brothers or daughters or mothers, right? Time. And so I think we all need to be in a state of flow for as much of this precious time that we've got. There is a very easy way to enter a state of flow. So before I go any further, why don't we take a little break and talk about what we've learned? And then I'm going to dive into something much more sophisticated, and it's about epigenetics, and it's about the miracles that we've uncovered and how to access the part of your brain that lets you change rather effortlessly, like you're on autopilot. You ready?
We are so ready. Thank you. Oh my goodness. If we are not primed to go into this breakout room, I don't know. So thank you so much for all that inspiration, information, and truth. You know, we need to know this, people. This is absolutely critical. Anyway, I'm super excited. We're going to go into a breakout room now, Kim. So welcome back, everybody. So I intuitively know that you had some interesting conversations in that breakout room. And I just wonder if someone would like to share either what they heard someone else say or your own experience about it. Feel free to just raise your hand at the very bottom of the bar here on Zoom to raise your hand and share. Okay, Cheryl, I'm going to call on you then.
Sure, there goes my timer. What I shared with my group was forgiveness is a state of flow. Because as we grow, you know, we'll surface things that maybe we didn't even know were there. And I just shared with my group a profound experience I had of that this week. And it was life-changing. And I'm so grateful.
Yeah, marvelous, beautiful. I just feel we had a conversation while you were in the breakout that, you know, this change is one of the hardest things in life.
Mm-hmm.
And I just feel so fortunate that Kim's done all this work over all these decades and has all this, you know, understanding as well as fact-based science with this. So I'm going to pass the baton back over to Kim so we can hear some other magnificent information and wisdom about positive prime. Kim, the floor is yours. Welcome.
Thank you again. Hope you all had fun. Don't you love Breakout? It's unique to this community and so incredible. All right, so the big breakthrough for us at Positive Prime, or for me, was the more I dived into understanding the conscious mind and the subconscious, and I should actually say, like, I did do Anthony Robbins' Life Mastery University program 20 years ago, went to Date with Destiny and all of the other events. And I learned a lot from Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins actually understands change, I think, almost better than anyone on planet Earth. And what's interesting is that a lot of people have focused on limiting beliefs, like you've got to remove your blocks. And an enormous number of life coaches and people in the human potential movement made a fortune out of convincing everybody that we have these limiting beliefs that we need to excavate and understand, and then we need to work on them. And they're all in the subconscious mind, and we're all acting out our patterns in unconscious ways. And what I can tell you is we now have a much more elegant understanding. And it's not necessarily just about your subconscious mind. Yes, there is something about the subconscious mind, but there's way more. And it's exciting. You ready? I started to think about positivity pink and how on earth do we make the actual thought, the person, the iceberg pink. We all know that an iceberg, and this is the image that's used to explain the mind, the largest part is underneath the surface where you can't see it, right? And so people have this Titanic reaction, like, oh, it's evil and it's going to bring down the ship or bring down the person. That's the power of the subconscious mind. But what if they weren't blue, which is often associated with feeling blue? What if they were pink positive? So I started to wonder, how on earth do you make humans mostly pink, even the bit that's submerged? And it's about epigenetics versus our genetics and our conditioning. So a lot of the field of psychology was about our predispositions because of our conditioning, either our trauma as children, an adverse childhood, you know, blah, we need days to go through all of that stuff. Is it about your genetics? And actually, I think it's about pink food dye. Now, if we were to pour enough pink food dye into the oceans, it would turn the icebergs pink. And it's the same as us. When we are in an environment of positivity, we change. And so Positive Prime is an incredibly simple and yet sophisticated way to change the epigenetics that you exist in. And I'm going to explain how this actually happens. A lot of it has to do with quantum physics. A lot of it has to do with our new understanding. In Australia, we actually have a program with people who are return services, men and women, and they've been to war, and they relocated them. And what they discovered was that their children had greater incidences of diagnosed depression if the return service person had post-traumatic stress. And yet they lived in paradise. They actually moved them to a part of Australia that is actually literally considered by tens of millions of other Australians as paradise. So why aren't these people happy when they get to go to the beach and there's no urban concrete jungle? Why aren't they changing because of their environment? Because it's about your immediate environment and it's about the energy in your immediate environment. So I really need you to hear all of that. It's about your immediate environment and it's about the energy in your immediate environment. And so Positive Prime is what we created. You literally watch it. It works if you can wrap your unconscious, your superconscious, and your other than conscious, I'm talking beyond your subconscious, above and beyond. So I'm going to be starting to talk about above and beyond your subconscious. So for me, the pink food dye was about changing the ocean. If you change the actual water that the iceberg's bobbing around in, the iceberg's going to change. So we're just going to relate that as the story to us as humans. I wanted to create something that works, that I knew would work, and that would work really quickly in modern day. It needed to happen within 3 minutes or within 15 minutes. And I originally called Positive Prime an enriching vision. I know it's a pretty dumb name, isn't it? Enriching visions. But actually it arose out of I am grateful, the movement that I had created around the power of gratitude. There's a formula to what is a Positive Prime session, and I'm going to actually reveal that to you. Yes, you get to look underneath the hood, and I'm going to explain why it works. But what we know, because of the other research that has been done, and this is Shawn Achor's The Happiness Advantage, is that when you are positively primed, and it happens within a very short period of time, you are more productive, more creative. We know that sales teams perform higher. In fact, there's a company called National Insurance. They went from 300 million to 900 billion to more than 2 billion, 300 million to more than 900 million to more than 2 billion inside 2.5 years of this particular program, having thousands of their insurance salespeople go through and become positively primed at the beginning of every single day. It's extraordinary, it's exponential, it's phenomenal. Yes, there's lots of, headlines, but actually at the end of the day, people like Shawn, and he did do his master's at Harvard University in divinity, studying Christianity and Buddhism, right? That's where he comes from. And I think that now is an appropriate time for me to talk about Nadine. See, Nadine's focus is about heart consciousness, a bit like Shawn Achor, who we are at our core when we are being the most beautiful, the most gentle, the most compassionate, who we are leading with our hearts is how we actually dive into being the kind of leader who brings about the happiness advantage inside our own work environments. That's not just with our own team members, but it's also with our customers. So let's take a much closer look. There are 7 key elements of a positive prime session. I'm going to give you an experience of what is a positive prime session in a moment. We're going to actually talk about the Grand Connections positive prime session. We're going to talk about Nadine's. We're going to talk about over 100 people. But let's just go back a step. I wanted, for my own validation, my own ego, my own encouragement, I wanted to reach out to somebody I considered the world's leading expert in the field of positive psychology. And I wanted to show them Positive Prime and get their reaction so that I could either further develop it or basically put a lid on it and put it on the shelf and walk away. And so I sent a message to Shawn Achor. Now, at that time, he already had tens of millions of views of his TED Talk. It's nearly 10 years ago that I reached out to him. And I said, Shawn, I'd really like for you to have a look at this. And could you give me your feedback? He came back to me. And at that stage, if you actually go and study more about Shawn Achor, he had spoken as a keynote speaker in over 50 countries in the previous year. Now, you can do the math. That means he's in a different country every week of a year. He, at the time, charged $50,000 as a keynote speaker for an hour. He effectively did the same that he did in his TED Talk. And then Google came along, and the minimum he charged was $1 million, but he wouldn't speak for any large Fortune 100 companies and governments and all sorts of other institutions and enterprises, unless they're involved in advancing research in positive psychology. Shawn Achor had a look at Positive Prime and he was like, Kim, how did you figure out how to create something that can change people in such a short period of time? I said, well, it's because there are 7 key elements. The first one is our understanding of mirror neurons. We have this area of our brain, we access it through our retina in our eyes. We see a Duchenne smile, that's a sincere smile. The mirror neurons in our brain send a message to our endocrine system, and we start to create more neurotransmitters, serotonin, dopamine, and oxytocin, but other neurotransmitters that fires up our brain and gets it into the brainwave state that is measurable, it's observable, and it's about synchronization of alpha and theta with spikes of gamma. It's not just about alpha, it's not just about theta, it's not just about gamma, it's about the synchronization. It's an incredibly precise state. If I give you a puzzle and you're in that state, you will solve it. They did this with Kaiser Permanente's hospitals. They started in Florida. They gave doctors case studies of life-threatening conditions. The doctors who were positively primed came to an accurate diagnosis within the time period that was set. The doctors who were negatively primed did not come to an accurate diagnosis. And you can neutrally prime some people, and we can talk about that. Number 1, Duchenne smiles. You need to see a certain number of Duchenne smiles. And in the corporate world and in places like London and Boston and Manhattan and all the other places I work, there weren't very many people who smiled at each other, right? It doesn't happen in the corporate world. People are grumpy. People are stressed. People are, I'm so tired. And they think that that's some kind of badge of honor. That's an embarrassment. I used to be that. Oh, talk about how stressed I am, how tired I am, how much international travel I do, how jet lag has affected me. It's not cool. It's not cool now, 20 years later, right? So I wanted to put Duchenne smiles in front of people's eyes. So I created the original slideshows with a certain number of Duchenne smiles. There is a formula, and I knew it would impact people's brains. But there's much more. You actually need a certain number of green trees. So there's a beautiful piece of research with people recovering from surgeries, and you're looking out the window, and if you can see green, you require less medication, you recover more quickly. And there used to be this understanding that you needed to be like the Japanese forest bathing. You need to be in nature. That is actually not the truth. All you need to do is see nature, and you increase cytokine production inside your body. So those proteins actually go to work creating themselves, and that boosts your immune system. You need to see a certain amount. Now, they show people photographs, and I want you to all hear this. The photograph needs to be 70% of it must be green. Not 65, not 40, not 30, 70%. There's so much precision and accuracy in this formula. Number 3, there's a woman named Jill. I'm going to reveal too much, but anyway, this is like my secret sauce. There is amazing research that when we as humans see round shapes, we actually soften. It's a bit like forgiveness. And it is necessary in order for us to be in a state where we can problem solve and so forth. We know because of Amy Cuddy and the power pose, some people call it the Superwoman pose, she actually did an incredible amount of research. She did blood samples. She noticed testosterone was increasing. People who exhibit a sense of confidence and composure, they actually have more testosterone in their bodies. What they noticed that if you put your hands up in the air like the Wonder Woman or the Victory or this actually, but it needs to be for a minimum of 16 seconds. Who wants to count? 1. Everybody's arms up. Woo! In the V. Okay, arms, no, elbows straight. Right up, elbows straight. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Arms straight up. Woo! 10, 12, 14, 16 seconds is actually quite a long time. They know medically that you just increased the production of testosterone inside your body, which is one of the fundamental building blocks to the emotion of confidence. Did you know that? Right. Minimum 16 seconds. Now, there is some new research that I employed or utilized, and it's about when you see photographs of pro-social behavior, you are more inclined to behave in pro-social ways. There's an enormous amount of research in corporate culture work, in organizational culture work, that pro-social behavior builds high-performing teams. Did you all hear that? Pro-social behavior builds high-performing teams. What does that mean? Nadine is the person to go to. It means heart consciousness as a human in your interactions with the people that you work with. So much more than that, but your social connections and the quality of your social connections, not the quantity, is actually fundamental to building communities that actually outperform. The real secret sauce is gratitude. So one of the things I learned from Professor Stephen G. Post is that when you feel an intense emotion of appreciation, like profound appreciation, you increase oxygen absorption out of your bloodstream. It's good for your heart. Now, I started teaching this nearly 15 years ago in the corporate world, and people thought that I was some airy-fairy, like Pollyanna. The world was not ready yet. The psychology of gratitude is actually it's a subject within a positive psychology master's program. Mike McCulloch and Robert Emmons have done incredibly valid scientific research on this experience of emotion, gratitude, and what it physically does. They know they did this incredible thing with an association of flower growers. Florists were actually told to write thank you on receipts. You know, remember when we just didn't tap and go? And what they actually found was if someone received a invoice or a receipt with a handwritten thank you, They tracked credit card transactions, and you were more likely to spend more and go back and reorder sooner when you'd seen a thank you. That's a really simple thing to apply in business, just a thank you, right? You think that you do it, but unless the client feels like it's sincere, it doesn't matter, right? So it has to be genuine. And one of the other key elements is really about how we integrate self-fulfilling prophecies, affirmations, and mantras, and wisdom inside what we call a positive prime session. So I'm going to show you what that means. But in essence, how does this image make you feel? So what I know is that the retina in your eyes is seeing these smiles. And here's the thing you need to know. If you've got note taker, great, but write it down. This is the bit to remember. Guess what? Your brain thinks you're smiling. Your brain does not know you are not smiling unless you are smiling. Your brain thinks you're smiling by you seeing smiles. Because your brain thinks that you're smiling, your brain goes to work sending messages to your body to produce the chemical cocktail that is for joy. So they actually do this in psychiatric hospitals. They do slideshows of Duchenne smiles because the retina in somebody's eyes takes in this information. This is a visual frequency, and it is impacting your body. You will produce the chemical cocktails that are associated with joy when you see enough Duchenne smiles. Your brain thinks you're smiling even if you're not. Green tree canopy, I think you all get that. Round shapes, I think you all get that. The victory pose, I think you all get that. Pro-social behavior, I think you all get that. This is more about connection. When we see this, do you know your body remembers the last time you were touched, and your body starts to produce the chemical cocktail that resonates with this? All I did was show you a picture. Now, back to the insatiable appetite that we have to be right. So when you see my life is harmonious, guess what happens? Your brain goes in search of evidence to prove to yourself that your life is harmonious. You then start to behave in different ways and take different actions because of the principles of cognitive resonance and cognitive dissonance, and you will do what is necessary to bring yourself into alignment so you are right about yourself and your life when you see my life is harmonious. So in Positive Prime, we've actually worked with some of the world's leading wise coaches, therapists, gurus, teachers, and we have Positive Prime sessions. And let's just say, we're going to say like Nadine's or Jack Canfield's, who was in The Secret with the success principles. When Jack, and I see his face, says something like, my life is harmonious, and I see it, my eyes see it, it processes in pre-conscious processing. My brain is going now for the rest of my day, 6 to 8 hours, and it's going to find evidence to prove to me that my life is harmonious, right? It's genius. Guess what? Happens automatically. All I have to do is show you that my life is harmonious. And guess what? Your little brain is going to go to work proving to you that your life is harmonious. Now, you might not wake up today and say, oh, my life is harmonious. Actually, highly lucky you won't. And so if you just put on a Positive Prime session, you're going to expose yourself to these incredibly wise statements that are positive, and you're going to prime your brain to go and use your reticular activating system to see the world you need to be able to see so that you can actually be the leader that you want to be. And you know that everybody is, quite frankly, in relationship to you. Who you're being is who you're attracting, right? You're harmonious. Guess what? You're going to find that the interactions that you have in your daily life and business are more harmonious. The people who actually want to create disharmony in your life, guess what? They meet a block wall. They bounce off. You don't actually pay them any attention. You don't allow that into your sphere. It doesn't influence you because you're resonating at, I am harmonious. My life is harmonious. I am about creating harmony. I share this harmonious experience. That's what happens, right? We all got it. I've mentioned the broaden and build theory. You can all go and look that up, and Dr. Barbara Fredrickson. The Pygmalion effect is actually really interesting. The piece de resistance in a positive prime session is your ability to personalize. You upload your own photographs. And I'm going to tell you something really amazing. None of all of this happens unless you personalize a positive prime session. None of it happens for you so that you're on autopilot with the way that you change, right? So if you have not yet read Shawn Achor's The Happiness Advantage, I think it's required reading for everybody in business. Of course, you can go watch his TED Talk. It seems a long time ago now. Yes, we could all watch it now, but no, let's advance. Okay, so I reached out to Shawn. Guess what? Shawn was in negotiations with Oprah Winfrey, and Oprah Winfrey had decided to do a Science of Happiness course, but guess who she sold it to? Google. 50,000 little tickets were created for Google, all their senior executives globally, and they got to do the Science of Happiness with Shawn Achor. Oh, and guess what the tool was that's incorporated inside that program? Positive Prime. Now, the Oprah Winfrey Network would not allow Positive Prime to be included inside this particular course until they did the objective research that proved its efficacy. And so Shawn reached out to some friends at Yale and some friends at, anyway, I could go on and on and on with this story. Suffice to say, he was more excited about it as an accelerated learning tool and how we integrate the information into our implicit and explicit memory. And that requires another masterclass of several hours. Yes, Positive Prime, the thing that I created, is inside Oprah Winfrey's 21 Days to a Happier Life, led by Shawn Achor. He actually had Kobe Bryant, rest his soul, in that program as well, and Arianna Huffington. Most people have heard of the Huffington Post. All right. Oh, I failed to mention his wife, Michelle Gillen. She is an extraordinary human. All right. So nobody believed me that it was scientifically proven because it was Shawn's commercial activity. And so it took me years to find the right kinds of academic institutions that would actually want to research Positive Prime. And we ended up with Dr. Avinash Singh at the University of Technology, Sydney, doing some real scientific research to prove what actually happens when you watch a Positive Prime session. Essentially, we did eye tracking, skin conductance, we did a whole heap of things, and we found out, it works. This is the fancy thing that we presented at the Society for Neuroscience. Even I don't understand that because I'm not a scientific researcher, but the people who needed to know, they know. It's pretty incredible, right? But we have a special offer for you, and that is you actually get an annual subscription for Positive Prime, and you get an exclusive workshop that helps you to reinforce the personalization with me and Nadine. I'm going to get Nadine to introduce herself in a second before we go off and break into another group. And if you are a Grand Connection member, you get a one-on-one private coaching with me. If you're one of the first, I want to say 20. I don't know how my schedule's going to fit 20, the first 20 people who buy, right? All right, so let's leave this for a moment. Let's go to Nadine. Nadine, why do I think that it is such an honor, privilege, and pleasure to work with you? And given your extensive qualifications and certifications and clinical practice, why do you represent Positive Prime in Canada? And why am I so comfortable with that? And why do I have so much confidence in you? And why do you love Positive Prime? Tell everybody a little bit about you.
Oh, Kim. Well, perhaps it's because I'm an NLP trainer, a timeline therapy trainer, a hypnosis trainer. Perhaps it's because I've been in a counseling and consulting position for 40 years. But I think that Positive Prime has been such an incredible tool in my life. It's been an incredible tool in my clients' lives. I've been around and with you, I think, for around 5 years now. And I have seen such great results with people using it and helping them through various things, whether it's anxiety or depression or sleeping at night. Just different kinds of things that it's really helped them with. For myself, I use it in a lot of different ways. I certainly have my husband on it. My husband was diagnosed with a tumor in his pancreas 3 years ago now, and he uses it every day. And if he doesn't, I get on his case and I get him to use it. With any tool, though, I'm going to say this. So it's important that you take the workshop and learn how to personalize it and learn how to really make the most of this. And then it's important that you use it. We buy a lot of tools and then we don't use it, but you really need to use it to get the most benefit from it. So that's about all I have to say.
Oh, thank you, Nadine. Do you know, there's another woman that I work with. Her name is Marissa Peer. A lot of people know her as the famous woman who created rapid transformation therapy, which is like hypnotherapy. But, people like Nadine do clinical hypnotherapy. And when hypnotherapists look at Positive Prime and understand the key components to it, most often I hear this, it's like visual hypnotherapy. But I think if I went to the worldwide market and said, I've created a visual hypnotherapy program, and actually I'm not a hypnotherapist, there would be a little alarm, right? But the funny thing about working with someone like Nadine is she can recognize the value because she actually physically does promote it to her clients. She sees the results in their lives. I have seen it in nearly 60,000 people. The key to Nadine's message just then is you've got to use it, right? Now, I'm the kind of person who will use it every day, and I will use it a lot. And then I actually might take a break for a couple of days, or whilst I'm away on vacation, I won't watch Positive Prime, but I notice the shift in me, and it's not pretty, right? It is so important. I underestimated how powerful it was, I think, because I didn't feel comfortable because I'm so introverted until Dr. Avinash Singh, and I watched Dr. Joe Dispenza's documentary a couple of weeks ago, and it's called Source. If you haven't seen that, you should definitely watch it. And Avinash actually sent me a note and said, Kim, why does his program require like audio meditations for 20 minutes twice a day and 7 days before they see those kinds of effects that we just proved with our own science happens inside 3 minutes? I went, well, because that's what Joe Dispenza does, right? He uses binaural beats and certain frequencies in music. So do I actually I have a treatment called holistic harmonic flow. So you can definitely change people with music. Sound therapy is ancient. Visual therapy, though, visual healing through Positive Prime is way more effective and way faster. That doesn't mean that they should be used in a mutually exclusive way. They should be used together, right? So I could go on and on and on, as I think that you've already gathered now. Inside Positive Prime, there's so much extra training for you. I just know in my heart, I do know this, I'll go to a chiropractor, I'll spend $70 on a 20-minute realignment or readjustment for my energy system. I can't live without my chiropractor. 3 sessions with my chiropractor is more than 1,000 sessions with Positive Prime, right? Because you have access at 24/7 online. It's a piece of fancy software though, so it lives inside its own platform that you access through Google Chrome. No, it's not an app, right? It can't be. There's a very, 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 very secret part. I'm going to tell you what it is, and it's called shuffling. When you watch a Positive Prime session inside the proprietary player, inside the platform, every single time you watch a session, it reshuffles. It randomizes the slides in the way that you see them, and it creates neuroplasticity. But in the masterclass, with respect to personalization and how your brain will attach your identity to the concepts, that's what we'll go deeply into the masterclass, the neuroplasticity aspect and the identity aspect, which is where fundamental change happens.
Marvelous, marvelous, marvelous. And Kim, there was one question in the chat that I'd like to address, if you don't mind, right now as well. So what is a Duchenne, like a smile that's a Duchenne spot? Well, if we just don't know what that is.
Okay, I love it. Thank you for the question. It's a good question. It's a fancy French label that scientists gave to a smile. So I want you to imagine that a piece of AI can actually scan 1 million photographs of smiles. And we as humans know whether that smile's real or that smile's genuine or that smile's sincere or that smile's got a good intention. Now, in science, they've also noticed that there are certain smiles, they call it the hostess smile. It's the forced smile. It's the, I'm actually really unimpressed with being at work right now, and I wish I didn't have to deal with you complaining passengers. Now, that smile, guess what? We as humans, we know that smile. We feel that energy. And so a Duchenne smile is a scientific term for a type of smile that is genuine, sincere, it's honest, it's real, we know it. And inside Positive Prime, I have trained really a rather incredible group of people to, we didn't use AI because AI didn't exist 15 years ago when we created this tool, but we have an ability and intuition in an energy healing kind of way to know whether the photographs are Duchenne smiles. And there are a few key components. I'd need another hour to explain to you, like I do my team, what you're looking for in a Duchenne smile, but it has to be a Duchenne smile. Otherwise, quite frankly, your brain doesn't think you're smiling.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'm just putting in the chat here, the demonstration that Kim's coming back to do, the demo to explain to all of us how to set this up. So Nadine, as well as Kim, are coming together to support us within this process and to create it within yourself on August 22nd at 1 p.m. Pacific time. I wanted to make sure that everybody got that information here too. And I think we may have just a short time for a breakout. Unless, Kim, what was the last segment that you were going to do? We just run.
I think that connecting with people is way more important, Carolyn. And I believe that if you're one of the first 20, you get to have an actual opportunity for a one-on-one with me. More to the point, you can come to Nadine's and my masterclass. And yes, the demo is August 22. One of the reasons why is because we actually send out a pretty thorough onboarding process, and you will learn so much. There's lots of little videos, 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes for you to watch, so that you can actually accumulate your knowledge, and you'll be primed for much better quality interaction in that demo. So what I would say is August the 22nd is the right amount of time before I know someone just said nothing sooner. Yeah, well, sooner, if you book your one-on-one with me,
Yes.
like get into my schedule or my diary, as we call it down under. So no, I think let's connect. I think that's much more important than more blah.
So Kim had the slide that also includes the masterclass session with her and Nadine, that they're going to do a workshop, which included in that for the VIPs, and a one-on-one. So that is also part of that VIP gift. And then we have a general gift here too. And I will just get you the general gift information in the chat for everybody right now.
And so everybody here receives the general gift, and the Grand Connection members have the VIP, and that investment is $179, regularly $379. And Kim is generously contributing to the charity that we support in Uganda, which is the Mother Magdalene Foundation. So thank you so much for your generous contribution with that too. So your investment in this for yourself is also contributing to those children in Uganda. And it's been such an honor to support Robert and Mother Magdalene Foundation. So I just wanted to put that across too, so everybody understood, okay? So let's go into the breakout room. And so this one is going to be simple, okay? So welcome back. So Kim, do you mind just mentioning what we just talked about? Because Alan Roberts is here all the way from England and he's sight impaired. So we just had this amazing conversation about people that are sight impaired and how they can use this tool. So can you, be right to you, Judy, keep your hand up there. Can you explain that to us, what you just explained while they were in the breakout room? I just find this incredible.
Sure. Interesting. Hi, Alan, that you're in the UK. I know it's late for you. We have a member of our community. So we have a certification program. We actually have coaches and therapists go through and learn a lot more. They have their own Positive Prime session. They are affiliates. They earn from promoting Positive Prime to their clients. People like Nadine are really committed. I spend a lot of extra time with her. It's based upon her contribution to our community. The reality is she's one of nearly 300 people who've been through this program. Another man, Aaron O'Dowd. Now, Aaron is a peak performance athlete. He has his own podcast and he's vision impaired and he's Irish. He and his research team have been able to discern and determine that he can see Positive Prime. He watches Positive Prime every single day, even though his brain thinks he can't see. He is really committed to understanding a lot more about quantum physics and the esoteric. And he and I had this incredible conversation because we have cells in our brain. I know you all have heard this about the brain-gut connection. We have thinking cells and emotional cells inside our brain, but also inside our heart and also inside our gut. And they started to understand this because open heart surgery or pacemaker patients, why does messing around inside the heart actually dramatically impact the brain? Now, heart surgeons have specialized in the heart and they haven't had time to specialize also in the brain. So there are very few cardiologists who are actually also neurologists. Now, what's fascinating is that Aaron has been able to explain and have his researchers sense that it's not just his intuition that is experiencing Positive Prime. He's actually picking up the messages. He thinks that there's a quantum physics effect. Because there are so few people in terms of percentages of the population who are vision impaired, the research funding isn't there yet for the neuroscience, but it is coming. And Aaron is one of these people who's really committed. He actually goes out and tells his vision impaired community that they need to actually watch Positive Prime. And even though they don't think that they can see it, the cells maybe even in their skin are seeing, and there is light frequency from each of the images, and he thinks that's what he's perceiving. He absolutely believes it's part of his secret to success. I kid you not. You should connect with him. He's amazing.
That's what I was just thinking too, Alan, because Alan's he's a mindset coach. He does speaking. He's written some incredible books.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like they need to meet. So we'll make sure that happens for you too, Alan. And thank you, Kim, for being here. Any questions, final questions for Kim at all or us? I just really thank you for taking the time to spend with us.